Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker, where we're always ready to put a new tea in our mouths and swirl it around and really find out more about it. So I've got a black tea here. We're going to get right into it. I've got my water. It's been boiled. It's been cooling off for just a few seconds now. I got a tea ready. This is going to be a Chinese black tea, and using a standard basic Gaiwan style here. Gaiwan being a covered bowl or a lidded bowl with the saucer beneath. And I'm going to be taking out my teaspoon. It's just a regular old daily use table size teaspoon. There's actually a difference between a cooking use teaspoon. As far as measurements go, I believe a cooking use teaspoon and a actual table top teaspoon are not exactly the same. But I've used enough tea that I've really covered about a inch and a half to inch and a half diameter of the bottom of my Gaiwan here. So just going to fold that over for just a moment and add my water here slowly, making sure that I cover each leaf, gets swirled around underneath, tucked underneath the surface of the water. That looks good. Let me set this out of the way and put my lid on. I've added enough water so that when I put my lid on, a little bit of liquor or water is going to rise above the lid, which will kind of create a seal. And that's okay, because as this cools off a little bit, it will seep back down into the Gaiwan as well, the bowl area as well. So while that's happening, I'm going to introduce this tea, which is from Teance. This is a black tea. This is their BailinGongfu tea. I think I recently commented Gongfu teas can get translated or written in a more localized Fujian area dialect as Tongo. So you may hear something, or you may see that written C as in Charlie, O-N-G, instead of the Gongfu that you may be more familiar with, or even Kung Fu. Okay, but anyway, BailinGongfu, you can find 2 ounces available for $36.75. That was their most recent price. I believe they're temporarily out of stock at the moment. This tea is from Fujian province in China, and what they did have available, and what this is that I have in front of me, is a 2010 harvest. So that's what we're going to be talking about, keeping an eye towards the 2011 harvest and what that may offer as well. Assuming, of course, that Teance is going to be able to go back to those same farmers, processors to get a similar kind of tea. This is hopefully going to reflect what we would see in the 2011 season as well. Okay, weather can always be a factor of that, so it won't exactly be a perfect match. So while we're talking about this particular tea, though, as usual, I'm going to be covering the aspects of the dry leaf, the wet leaf, and the liquor. So talking about this dry leaf, let me give it a smell first. There are some kind of nice, sweet, fruity notes. There's a red globe grape, as if you're eating a red globe grape. Something big, a reddish purple, juicy there. Combined again with some more kind of sweet, fruity type notes. I'm getting some kind of in the back more of the taste. I haven't eaten cherries. There's something in that kind of flavor component in there as well. Any toasted type notes. Again, it may be more of a baked cherry, so it's a combination with those fruit components there. Now, looking at these leaves, you notice that you're going to be getting a pretty high ratio of the darker kind of seal brown ochre looking color with a very, like I said, very high percentage. I mean, at a glance here, I would say this is close to half, if not maybe a little bit more than half, of golden fuzzy tips, buds here. So they're all wrinkled or twisted along the middle of the vein, middle vein of the leaf, so the length through the length of the leaf or the bud there. you see that they're going to be fuzzy. There's actually a bit of a, just looking into the package, there's a lot of that golden colored dust floating around in there, just because of all the hairs and filaments that are on these all these needles. So nice golden color, high percentage of, like I said, high percentage of buds or tips there. Good size, I would say, you know, around the neighborhood of an inch or more in a lot of these full-sized intact buds or tips there. So that's a positive sign as well. Nice, good size, I believe, not overly sized and but not skimpy by any means either. So, having looked at that and set it aside, we can proceed to talk a little bit about this wet leaf and get a pour here. Now, the water that was sitting above the rim has receded back down below the rim of the lid and below the lid itself. There, so now my rim of my bowl has cooled off enough I can handle that. I'm going to put one finger or index finger on the lid here to hold it in place and give a nice pour. Looks good. Shake out a few of those last few potent drops there, and that looks good. We will set that to the side for just a moment and talk a little bit about this wet leaf. Get a good sniff of it first while all the air is trapped under here. Now, at this point, a bit more of the heat notes are coming out. There was a bit of a kind of a cane, sugar cane type of a smell. Again, there's still some sweetness coming out of this. That's a nice positive quality of this particular tea. There's a sweetness there. There's, again, something, the more heat type notes, baked aspect coming out. One more time here. Yes, baked. It's as if you had baked some grapes. So there's a raisin bread component there. You've got a little bit of warm, the yeasty, doughy type smell, combined with that sweetness of a grape. A little bit of an earthy, I would say, underneath that, very faint, light. Think about some baked or even toasted slices of sweet potato. There's something in there of that kind of component here too. But most of it is sweet, warm, very bread dough. Yeah, raisin bread dough that is starting to warm up in the oven. Not fully baked yet. Nice components. And looking at these leaves, by now they've become consistent in color, so that what you have are lots of these little filaments, needle type shapes here, I should say. You get a needle leaf, and there's actually a leaf and bud set, or portion of a leaf connected to that rest of that set there. And so you're getting some nice fine needles as well. They've straightened out quite a bit. And again, now they're consistent in color, but that really introduces our wet leaf, and we can move on and talk a little bit more about our liquor. Looking at this liquor, you're noticing it's got a nice, rich red or black tea, you could say, texture and an appearance to it. It's moving over a little bit towards a very deep amber. A almost purplish red type of color there, purplish reddish brown aspect to it. I'm seeing a lot of little like the filaments from the needle floating around in there. So you're getting these very, very fine hair-like elements floating around in there as well. Now, aromas have lightened, but you are still getting some sweetness here. Again, it's getting more of a heated type of sweetness. You're getting more of a kind of a baked type of note. Think about sugar that's beginning to caramelize, maybe a good way to say it. Okay. Let's give this tea a try. As I look down through this, good consistent color here. Not a lot of cloudiness either in it or to it. Tastes here are getting a little bit more earthy. Like I mentioned, I detected some of that kind of sweet potato aspect. There's something kind of earthy, baked sweet potato chip type aspect in this taste as well. It's moving away from some of the more fruitier, baked apricot, even some of that cherry, converting to cherry cobbler. That's over on the wayside, on the sidelines, and more you're getting that. You're getting some of the brown sugar, so that like what you'd find maybe in some baked bean type of brown sugar there. Again, some of that caramelized type of toasting sugar aspect there. I'm picking up some more of the astringency in the back and the aftertaste. It's not accompanied by a lot of the again, a lot of the fruit type sweetness there. Texture wise, it wasn't watery by any means. It had a very I would say a moderately silken, so it's got a smooth texture to it, a consistent texture to it, an even texture to it. But looking at this tea compared with other Fujian blacks, I would say that this one didn't really bring out as much of that. There's some of them can have kind of a sweet cocoa powder element to them. Others can have a little bit of a more of a fruity note to them. This one didn't bring as much of that. So there's not as much complexity in this one as compared to some other of the Gongfu style or area, region I should say, that's associated with the Gongfu style. So when I look at this tea as a whole, I'm probably going to give this tea an 88. It's got some nice components to it. It's, like I said, it's got some smoothness and some consistency. It's a great looking and great quality dry leaf, but it just didn't bring the full parade. There was a few members of the orchestra who who may have gotten left behind. So come back to Walker Tea Review, where we were looking at teas that play with the whole orchestra and bring the symphony to your mouth.